In this training, I want to help you pursue a job in the federal market, right? How to get a job in the federal market's the title of the training. If you're experienced, these ideas are going to be good ideas to help you get the next BD job. Uh, Really, the idea behind this is to try to teach people who are outside the market. I created this framework for how to get a job as a business developer in the federal market for two main reasons. The first reason is small businesses. For the last 5 years, I've been supporting small businesses through the GovCon Chamber. We help a lot of customers, but in the chamber, we have a lot of members and people who can continue to come in. And one of the things that I've noticed, the biggest challenge I find that they face is business development. And so they need business developers. They need people to help them reach out. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. The second reason that we created this framework is because too many Americans out there are unemployed or underemployed. I hear this term all the time, right? Unemployed or underemployed. People who have college degrees, but they're in jobs that just aren't leading them on some sort of career track they envisioned when they invested in college, the money and the time to go to college. And then also this third group of people, so unemployed, underemployed, and then transitioning people with no clear path before them. And a very good example for me, since I'm a veteran, I looked at the whole veteran pool, and there's like 200,000 to 400,000 people who transition out of the military, and not all of them have a clear path in front of them on where they're going. And so I created this framework as a way to say, hey, let me introduce you to the federal market, business development career field, if you will. And it's, it's sales, but it's a business development field. Let me introduce you to that as an option, because your skills and your experience within the military can certainly transition. Certainly when you go right back into the military selling, and selling is, we'll talk about this in a minute, but it's pretty straightforward, right? Sales in the federal market is about a lot of research, and it's about strategic relationships, building long-term strategic relationships. And so if you're good at research and long-term strategic relationships, then being an unemployed, underemployed, or transitioning person, you can look to this career field and move forward. And so I'm really trying to push that forward. It's not, sales in the federal space is not typical. Like I sold vacuum cleaners door to door. I had to make a sale that same day, right? Car sales, it seems sometimes it's giving you this bad way of looking at it that's pushy, right? Sometimes we think of sales as pushy, but sales is vital. But in the federal space, sales is 6 to 12 to 24 months. It's about researching and understanding your customer and then building those long-term strategic relationships. So a lot of you might be interested in doing that. So in this training, I'm going to cover 3 main points. The first thing is I want to talk to you about the criteria I use and I want you to use when you're picking the next company to join. Right? You should think about, what company do I want? Have your set of requirements already in place. The second thing I'm going to cover is how to find companies that might hire you, but that aren't looking right now. They don't have a job posting out there for a business developer. They weren't actually saying they're looking for somebody, but there's ways to find companies and get a job there. And so I want to tell you how to find them. And the third thing we'll wrap up with is how you can have these first meetings with small businesses that I'm going to recommend you reach out to that could lead to a job. Right? Done correctly, you can impress these businesses, and they offer you a chance to come in and join them, right? And so really, ironically, it's sales. Getting a job is sales. That's all it is. You're selling yourself. And when you sell yourself, you're not trying to do smoke and mirrors and lie. You're trying to help them understand you, and you're trying to understand them and how you might fit in. That's all business development is and sales is. So that's what we're going to cover in today's training. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. Today's tips are a little different, right? I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. And today, I'm going to be talking about the process of going and getting a job as a business developer within the federal market. There's hundreds of thousands of small businesses within the federal market. There's many of them that are good fits for you, and I want to kind of help you do that. But to get a job like that, it's just a process. You got to follow a process. Before we get started, do me a favor, help people remember who you are. Put your company name if you're with a company right now. If you're not, that's fine. But let me know what city and state you're coming in from. If you're in a different country, you can throw that as well. We've got people watching from all different countries, especially active duty military. This is why I get engaged in this, because I'm still very tied into the community. So just let me know where you're coming in from. I want to be able to know that as we move forward. And finally, I just want to say thank you to the sustaining members. We're not funded by the government. We're not funded by large primes. We're self-funded. We're funded by people like you and me. We make this training and the content we provide available to other small businesses out there. So on their behalf, thank you. Okay, let's dive in to today's topic on how to get a job as a business developer in the federal market by starting with what's the criteria for a great company to join, right? I don't want you to just join any company. It's like, especially if you're underemployed or unemployed, I don't want you to just jump at the first shot. I want you to think about, what would make a great company to join, that criteria you can use, and think about this as your requirements. So the first thing that I would say that they must have, if I'm going to look for a company to work for, I want to make sure that they have a clear core competency, right? This is very important. And what that means is that they have a clear, focused offer of what they sell. And the reason this is important is for twofolds. You need to be able to get your hands or your head around what they sell and begin to understand it, right? You don't need to be an expert. They got people in the company to be an expert, but you need to be able to have a clear understanding of what they sell. For example, one of our customers we were talking to this morning, they do cybersecurity with a specialty on data security. It's like, okay, that's a clear core competency, a clear focused offer. If I'm getting a job with them, I'm going to have to learn more about what that means, right? It's governance and risk management and compliance, might be operations and engineering. I begin to understand it, but it's all cybersecurity with a specialty on data security. When I know that, it's easy for me to get my head around it, but also it's easier for everybody else that I go talk to. I sell, right? Selling in the federal government is really just having conversations, many of them over and over again. But when I go to federal agencies and I try to talk to them about what my company does, when I go to teammates, other companies that I might want to work together with, and I'm telling them what we do, having a clear core competency or a clear focused offer makes it easy for them to go, oh, I get it. You guys do cybersecurity and with a specialty on data security. And then you can start having conversations, right? The second thing that I want you to pay attention to as a criteria is that this company should be making money. If you're going to go work for a company, yes, you can work for companies that are under $2 million for sure. There's room in there. But I'm looking for a company that's making at least $1 million. You want them to be able to pay you a decent salary. And as you help them grow, they're able to provide you with a solid salary, base salary, bonuses and commissions if they do that, right? And so you want to make sure they're making money to a certain degree. The number I would use if you're unemployed or underemployed is just look for a company that's doing $1 million or more as that first criteria. And then as you move forward, depending on what you want, right? The more money they make, the reason this is a little better for companies to be making 5 million or even 10 million that you reach out to. And I'll show you about how you can, filter down to find those companies. But when you find companies that are making more, like 5 or 10 or more, then these companies, even though they're still small businesses, they have a lot of experience, past performance, and that makes it easier for you to sell, right? But you want them to at least be making good money so that they can pay you and you can see your ability to work with them and help them grow, right? The third thing is you want them to focus on 1 or 2 federal agencies. A good flag for me, if I was going in somewhere, is if I see a company that says they want to sell to all these different agencies, even departments, right? They have no focus. There's no focus in there. They'll expect to try to win from everywhere and they'll look everywhere. The problem is that's not how sales works. If you look at large companies in the federal market, large companies are like, let's say these billion-dollar companies, you have business developers who are focused not only on just the Air Force, but some of these people are focused on just some aspect of the Air Force. And so it's really important to when you're looking at a company and the criteria you're measuring them on is, are they able to focus down and say, hey, I'm only going to sell to DHS, or we're going to sell to Department of Veterans Affairs, right? Maybe they're selling to HUD and Department of Education. Whatever it is, it needs to be kind of minimized from a company level. Certainly when you get the job, you want to make sure that you're only held accountable for 1 department. Any company that has you working on 2 departments is not interested in you learning about the customer and going in deep to understand them, because you'll be so busy trying to run back and forth between all the different departments, right? So look for that focus on 1 or 2 key federal agencies. Fourth one, and I got 5 criteria here. The fourth one is when you talk to them, and I'll talk to you about this a little bit. When you talk with them, you're going to talk to them about the 7-step process that I teach for federal sales success, right? The 7-step process that leads to sales. is research, targeting, outreach. That leads to strategic relationships, slam dunk opportunities, winning proposals, goes to sales. These 7 steps are the path to success in the federal market. When you talk to a company, you want to make sure that they believe in that process and they're not looking for a convoluted process, or even worse, they're not operating with no process, or they're like, well, whatever. No, you want somebody who believes in process, because process is how you have success. Process is how do you do something. And once you really figure out how to do it, then you just do it over and over and over again to get better and to have more success, right? And the last one that I want you to consider when you're looking at a new company to go work for, and by the way, these are really good criteria for companies who are trying to attract top talent to be thinking about. But the last one is chemistry and culture fit. When you talk with a company and you're going to go look for them, typical way of getting a new job is you go in for an interview and you come out and that's it. What I'm recommending is you actually have a couple of meetings with them. Not interviews, meetings where you're talking about things, but see what the chemistry is like going back and forth. Are you able to, kind of debate a topic? Are you able to move forward? Is there too weak of leadership, or is there too dominating of leadership? So always look for that kind of chemistry. I do that when I work with customers. I say, if you want to work with me, ping me on LinkedIn and let's have a conversation. And in the conversation, it's not about me just explaining what we do. It's about me interviewing that person to go, do I feel like there's chemistry, that we could be colleagues for the next 90 days of my workshop, as an example. So you want that right away. And then culture fit, you can see with an organization. I was just talking again to a customer today, and they have a big part of what they do and focus is on giving to the local communities, working with local communities. Well, that could be a big part of your culture, is you want to give back and you want to work for a company that gives back. So you want to identify those things. But these are the criteria of great companies to join. So just really quickly, they have a clear core competency, they're making money, they're focused on 1 or 2 agencies, federal agencies, and they're prepared to implement the 7-step process that I teach and that hopefully you're following. And then the 5th one is that there's chemistry between you and them. And when I say them, I'm usually talking about the owner of the company, right? You will never work with the HR department, but the typical hiring process is you're dealing with the HR person to get hired. But all the people you're working for, and the culture is driven by the owner of that company, especially small businesses, right? It's so easy. So let's talk about how to find companies that might hire you, but they don't currently have an open job posted, right? And that's okay. That's totally fine. So the first thing is, and this is actual tactical steps. And for people who are sustaining members, by the way, you have access to this training. This is a full course on how to do business development and then how to go after a job as a business developer. But all the steps that I'm talking about, they're in that course. So you have access to that right now. But the first step to finding that job is to research companies to call. We call this targeting in the 7-step process. It's about building a list of 1 to 200 people. You want to be able to find those people, but how do you find these companies? The first place I might look, and I'm going to give you some terms, and if you're in the federal space, they'll make sense. If you're outside the federal space, just know I'm giving it to you at a very high level at the moment. You can look at other training I have that you can track on this. But the first place I might look are contract vehicles. 8A Stars 3, GSA Mass. And the reason is because I can look in to these contract vehicles, which have been awarded to a select group of small businesses. For example, 8A Stars 3 has 1,200 businesses that are contract awardees. I can look in, find out who they are, and then begin to maybe reach out to those companies. Or I can go in and look, find the 1,200, and then do some more research on a tool called USA Spending or FPDS to see which ones are actually making money, which ones have won $1 million or $5 million in the last year in prime contracts. Well, if I see that, then I go, okay, they're hitting one of those criteria of making money. So contract vehicles, USA Spending, and then DSBS is where you go find this person's name. So when I have you reaching out to try to talk to somebody to get a job in the federal market, I want you to talk to the small business owner. Why talk to HR? Why talk to anybody else? Go straight to the focus of power. The person who can sit there and say, wow, I like what you're talking about. I want to bring you on, right? And then HR just makes it happen, right? So the idea is you're trying to sell yourself to the business owner. Don't go through a job approach. And so how do you find these business owners? In the federal market, we have a tool called the Dynamic Small Business Search, DSBS tool. And in there, you will find almost always the owner of the company, their phone number, and their email. right? And often they put their cell phone in because when they filled this information out, it was, they were just, that was the only number they had as a cell phone, right? We're all on mobile these days. And so if you find companies, and by the way, in DSBS, you can look in there and we can talk more about this, but you can look at DSBS, this dynamic small business search tool. And instead of trying to find companies that are on a contract vehicle, you can find companies that are in your local area. So I started the GovCon Chamber out in Duncan, Oklahoma. Even though I'm here in the DC area, Washington, DC area, I started the GovCon Chamber in Duncan, Oklahoma because my niece was out there. She was looking for a job. I'm like, hey, I'll start a company anywhere. My point is, if she was looking for a company to go work for, she could go into DSBS and say, show me small businesses within a 10-mile radius of Duncan, Oklahoma, right? Or begin to expand. And so there's a way to find businesses using DSBS. And then when you find a list of companies that are worthwhile trying to reach out to, right? Then you use the dynamic small business search to get that person's name, number, and email. So that is how you find the companies. It's really a straightforward process, right? You can look in USA Spending or FPDS to find winning companies, winning small businesses. They're winning $1, $5, $10 million, right? So finding winning companies. And then you can also look in contract vehicles, which is another great way of finding companies that have traction, that if you came on, you could help. And then the third place you can look is DSBS to find companies that are in your area or maybe somewhere where you're trying to go. And then DSBS is where you get their name and number. So let's move on to this last part that I want to share with you is how do you have the first meeting in a way that you're going to wow them, right? How do you wow this business owner so that it can lead to a job offer? You can bypass HR completely, right? Bypass CareerBuilder, bypass the thousands of applicants. This was a big thing that I was paying attention to when I talked about unemployed and underemployed. And a big part of the underemployed group of people that are out there, and this may be you, these are people with college degrees. And in fact, we have people in our community right now who tell me that they've got massive progress in their company because they've watched my training and become a business developer. And they were never in the federal market before, but because they're watching the training, they're moving forward. But the application process they told me about, they had a college degree, it might be a bachelor's, it might be a master's, and they go look for a job. And more often than not, when they applied for a job they found on CareerBuilder or Dice or wherever else you go find jobs, when they applied for a job, they're up against thousands of applicants. And the better the job is, the better pay, and maybe the better benefits, maybe you can work remote, et cetera. The more applicants. It was just so cutthroat. And they would spend all this time just kind of throwing it out, throwing applications out sometimes and not hearing back. I would watch news reviews of people talking about, they would put out 100 applications to 100 different companies and not get responses back. Right. And it kind of is a little bit understandable because if you're the HR person or the recruiter getting 1,000 job applicants, it's kind of hard for you to respond back, say, hey, thanks, Sally. We got it. We're still looking. We're considering or whatever. And so what people like Sally would end up doing is they'd only be able to respond to the people they could bring back in. And more often than not, they had an automated system, an AI tool or something that would look at the applicants and weed them out. So you never even got to Sally. It was a computer saying no to you. Right. And so I want you to be able to avoid that. By doing this process that I'm saying, and I want to make sure that you have success, because when you follow the process I'm talking about for getting a new job as a business developer in the federal market, you're going to bypass all the applicants. You're going to bypass all the recruiters and all the HR departments initially, talking straight to the focus of power, the business owner. The business owner is the one that understands the federal market, where they're trying to go. And so that's who you want to talk to. I'm going to give you a couple of tips in here. I have 2 slides that I want to just read off or pay attention to for me. Some are the overall tips. And then I want to talk about in a meeting, in that first meeting, how do you really wow them? So the first thing is I have this whole set of skills that I teach, right? I have a course within the GovCon Chamber membership that people can get access to. It's a really very thorough course. If you don't want to go in there and you don't want to pay the $300 to be a member, I have all this training one way or another on my YouTube channel, right? So you can find it out there, but you want to learn the skill set. And the skill set is the foundation of the skill set of being a business developer is the 7-step process: research, targeting, outreach, relationships, opportunities, proposals equal sales, right? When you understand that, you understand that fundamentally that is business development. That is what we're looking for you to do. The second thing that you want to do in preparation of having a great first meeting is you customize an outreach toolkit. And I'll talk more about this later, and I've done it before. But basically, since I said you're selling the business owner on hiring you either as a gig, maybe 1099, or as an employee, W-2, you're selling that person on bringing you onto their team. And so just like I would do a normal sale where I'm trying to sell $10 million in services, I would use a call plan. And this is a sheet that I have explained in the course. I also have it on YouTube videos, but use a call plan. And this outreach toolkit includes a script that you would have for when you're calling and leaving a voicemail, an email template, and then a call plan. And the idea of a call plan is you have a set of questions you're asking that person. And so if you're able to schedule a meeting with a business owner, you schedule it a week out, and then you research that company so that you have 5 or 10 questions that you can ask them as you go through it. So as you're setting up the meetings, I mentioned this before, first thing you do is create a list of 100, 200 companies that you can reach out to, right? Don't just do a small amount, 200, and then you're going to be calling a lot of people. So we'll come back to that in a second, but create a target list of 200 companies you're going to reach out to. Then call that contact. More often than not, you're going to end up leaving a voicemail. So you use a voicemail script, but you're leaving a message saying, hey, I just wanted to call, introduce myself, have a quick intro call about business development. The third thing you do when you leave a voicemail and you're reaching out, you follow up with an email so that they're tracking on it, right? You're not calling a recruiter who's getting 1,000 emails about this topic. You're calling one business owner who probably has never been called by anybody, calling to say, I'd like to talk to you about business development at your company, right? And then the final thing you do is schedule a meeting. You follow those 4 steps to set up the meeting. And as you move forward into the meeting, the way you have a successful meeting is using a call plan. And I already kind of mentioned that. One last thing you can do in preparation of this is as you schedule a meeting, not before, because beforehand, it's just a waste of time. You don't want to research a company or spend a lot of time before you reach out. You just want to make sure they have enough money to be able to be on your list. But you don't research them thoroughly until they schedule a meeting with you. But then you can engage with them on LinkedIn. You can follow them on LinkedIn. You can learn about their company on LinkedIn as you're getting ready to have a meeting. So the tips for success in that meeting that I want to share with you, and I've got 6 or so that I want to share. First thing is when you go in, this is a sales 101 tip. Listen twice as much as you talk. This is a little bit reversed when you think about how a typical job interview might go. A typical job interview might be you go in and they say, tell me about yourself. Well, let's talk about this or whatever. What you want to do is to be able to go in and, like I said, you have a call plan for these interviews that you're going to have. But these interviews are not formal HR interviews. They're discussion with the business owner. And so if you're prepared and you know about their company, you can ask them questions. For example, hey, can you tell me about what process you currently follow for business development, right? Whatever they say, it doesn't matter. You want to listen twice as much as you talk. And when you do talk, you want it to be based on what you're hearing, right? You want to be able to say, if they sit there and say, well, we actually currently don't do it. We have it with relationships, new relationships. Okay, well, so, the process I follow is really doing research into an agency and targeting. What are you guys doing right now to develop new relationships since your sales activity is currently happening based on existing relationships? Whatever it is, right? You want to begin to get good at that. Those of you who are experienced will be better at this than others. But in this training, as I go into, you'll see more of it. You want to take a printed copy of the 7-step process. And the reason I say this is you're sitting down with this person saying, hey, I want to see if there's a fit for me and in your company as a business developer. A junior business developer, if you're brand new, you can say, I don't have any experience, but I'm really good. I got a college degree or I got military experience, whatever it is. And this is the process I have learned and I would like to follow within your organization. It's the GovCon Chambers, Neil McDonnell's 7-step process for federal revenue success. Research, targeting, outreach will lead to the relationships that you're not having right now so that we can identify opportunities and be able to write proposals that'll help you start winning more sales. How's that sound, Mr. Job Hirer or whatever, right? The next tip for success is I want you to shift authority. When you go into an interview, you're always at this level. You're down here and the interviewer's here and you're feeling a little off balance, right? You want to shift authority so that you're equal and then shift it so that you're the one who's in the more authoritative position. It doesn't mean that you're not equals. It just means you're shifting the authority because you did your homework. You researched on them on DSBS, right? On DSBS, if they don't do a certain set of things, they're invisible. 75% of small businesses are invisible. And so when you learn this from me, go watch my videos, you can look at their DSBS profile before you go in and say, hey, John, before we get started, just in case it doesn't slip my mind, I just want to tell you that here's a piece of paper. These 3 things you need to change on your DSBS profile, and it'll make you much more visible or something. When you do that, you're no longer in an interview. You're in a discussion with John about his company and the future of his company. And that's how you start shifting the authority up there. The 5th one, so apparently I have 7. The 5th one is show them that you have a plan by laying out a 90 to 100-day roadmap. This roadmap that says, look, when I come in here, I'm an unknown to you. I get that. I'm following this process, and you understand that. But when I come in, I'm going to do this in the next 90 to 180 days. I took an intern who never knew anything about the government contracting space, taught him exactly the business development stuff that I teach in the course and the videos, et cetera. And he was able within the first 30 days to understand a new agency enough to begin to start having some calls. And by the 2nd month, 60 days, right? 2nd month was able to start having calls alone. And by the 3rd month was able to shift authority through their research, shift authority in the conversation, that they were able to move forward and start looking at opportunities. You don't have to do it that aggressively. They actually had me as a mentor, kind of giving them guidance on a regular basis, right? A weekly basis. But you can certainly do that in 90 to 180 days. Get into an agency and be able to show that expertise and introduce this company. So being able to demonstrate that you have a roadmap, they don't have to ask you, or they don't have to think themselves how to measure you. You tell them, look, measure me this way. If I don't do this in 180 days, right, you can get rid of me. But more importantly, every 30 days, you will see me moving us forward, moving your company forward. The last one I wanted to mention, and you're here on this now, or you're watching the recording, but a tip for success is attend my daily lives, because I teach business development every single day on federal sales training. I teach tips for success. And so if you come here, you'll constantly get better at that skill as you're looking for a job and then as you get it. There are thousands of small businesses out there that need business development support. I work with many, many of these. If you're looking for a career change, or if you're looking for a career field that is layoff proof, right? No layoffs. Federal market didn't stop spending money in COVID. They spent more, right? Consider becoming a business developer in the federal market. If you found today's training valuable, become a sustaining member of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And then, in fact, make sure that you, if you're a member already, that you go into the membership library, because you got a whole course in there on how to be a business developer, be the best business developer. And then if you want, how to get a job as well. If your company's making money already and you're looking for support to go to the next level, consider my 90-day BD Accelerator workshop. You just ping me on LinkedIn if you want to learn more. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.